Hello.
Good morning.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Must have issues getting in. Diamond is saying she can't seem to get into the meeting.
It took me a couple times, but I was logged into the wrong account, so that could have been why.
I didn't have a problem at all.
Okay. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know. So my cats are on a rampage this morning, so it should be interesting to hear some growls and things. Mike, you understand.
Yeah.
They're like fighting. Hold on. This is getting on my nerves.
Yeah, cats after they've eaten in the morning, they gotta let off some steam.
Yeah, this one, she's the culprit. She's naughty. She just like tortures everyone all the time. Diamond says she's still having issues. Let's see if I could. It's gotta be like a invite.
The invite is underneath the participants
Is it?
or the chat area.
Oh, well, that's funny because I don't see that.
I have it.
Weird. I don't know. That's funny. I don't see any, because normally there is like a little, like you can invite someone and it's not showing up on my screen. Let's see. Well, I hope nobody else has that issue. Okay. Mike, are you prepared to be our moderator this morning? I feel like you were born to be the moderator.
I'm still ready.
Okay, let's see. Oh, there she is. Diamond, you figured it out.
I did. It was weird. It kept like making me sign in 90 places and then forgetting that I signed in, but here I am.
Oh my gosh. So you and Prince Harry, I see him back there.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, Megan's here too.
Who's joining us?
I just saw Harry. I did not see Megan until you moved.
Cherish bought me those.
It's pretty awesome, actually.
They've been my coworkers for the past couple of months. Although
I was pretty salty whenever she married Prince Harry because I thought he was for me. But if anyone's gonna marry Harry, I'll let Megan. Megan can have it.
That's how I feel too.
Did you ever watch Suits, or did you ever watch the show she was on?
So I didn't start watching it until after they got married because I didn't really know who she was until.
Yeah. I was like a loyal Suits watcher for years and years and years. So it was like all of a sudden she was marrying Prince Harry, and I was like, what? So, yeah, that's so funny. Well, hopefully nobody else has issues getting logged in this morning. Still early.
Mine definitely seemed to be an issue with Zoom, not with the link that you sent.
Okay. Well, and Zoom is doing like another update soon. So we've been told at work that we have to do like they're doing some sort of security update to keep people out of meetings. And by like May 30th, if you haven't updated to the new version, like you won't be able to use it at all. So I don't know if like some of that's affecting people's different versions of Zoom, but
Yeah.
we tried to use it for like our church service on Sunday. We use it every Sunday since we're not meeting in person, and it wouldn't, like, Zoom was just down. Like, it didn't work for anyone.
Weird.
Some weird kind of tech issue, but hopefully we don't have that issue today. Hey, Craig. Hi, Miranda.
Hi, I'm renaming myself and I'm gonna go jump on a different computer.
Okay.
Nice background.
I
That
know.
looks awesome. I like hung sculpture stuff.
I know. I love all that. It's so cool.
Perfect for this.
All right, guys. It's Friday. There's a 3-day weekend. I don't know what weekends are anymore, but we're just leaning into it. It's fine. Oliver, Miranda shared this collaboration station doc with me, but it's got your mom's name on it. So I guess she's using your mom's computer.
Yeah, she is.
I was like, who is Nancy? But then I read her note.
Yep, that's it.
Hey, Kayla.
Good morning.
Are you and Mike in different rooms?
Yes.
I love that.
I was like, it'll be easier for us to do our own thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mike, did you get a haircut? Your hair looks good.
Did.
I know. I got a
Yeah,
haircut
on
this week
Tuesday.
too. Thank goodness. You too, Kayla.
Brave the elements.
That's good.
Yeah, Kayla got a haircut.
I feel like a new person.
I was gonna say, it's nuts how those like small things have really helped just like bring me back to life a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. I had like several inches cut off, and I haven't had a haircut since January, but it did. I was like, oh, I realized I had a lot of lack of confidence because my hair was terrible.
Had a lot of inches taken out.
You can have some woven back in. I don't know, girl.
Back to my natural hair for a little bit.
Hey, Jessica, I love that nice little plant wall you got going on back there.
Yeah, how pretty.
Oh, we can't hear you. Is your sound on? Oh, I think you're muted.
I just put it up on Monday.
It looks awesome.
Yeah,
Where did you get it?
Hey, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Every time I try and log on to Zoom, because I guess my mother-in-law isn't registered for the event and I'm on her computer, it's kicking Oliver off. So can I register her email address with the event, or how would we solve this? Oh, never mind. We have another account. I'll try and log on to Oliver's real quick.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I just had to create a personal account this morning.
Yeah, it's whatever your email is attached to your Creative Mornings account is what's
Okay.
going to let you log in. It's just, I'm telling you, Zoom has all these security protocols now that's making it, there's nothing I can do about it. So it's.
Okay. We'll swap. Yeah, so I'm going to leave and then come back.
That's funny because I see his screen up and hers. So I'm not sure what she means by like being kicked off because I can see them both. I don't know.
If we share the Zoom link with someone who hasn't signed up, can they still call in or no?
They should be able to, as long as they register like to have a Zoom account.
Okay. I shared it with my mom. I think she's going to call in, so we'll see if she can make it on.
Yeah, and if for some reason someone can't do the screen, the phone number always is an easy way to get into. I mean, obviously doing the screen is a little more interactive.
Logged in.
I'm not a tech expert, so I don't know. This is what's challenging about doing it this way, is I'm not sure. Hey, Brooke. Yeah, Jessica, are all those plants alive? Those are real plants, right?
Yeah. This is at my store.
People
Okay.
ask me that all the time. Like every day, people are like, "Are those real?"
Well, it reminds me, I've seen those like green walls before, but normally they're like woven into some sort of like grate that keeps them watered. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure, like, I guess you have to keep those watered, but not too
Yeah.
overwatered. And
Yeah, they're like individual pots. They're just all individually on the wall.
yeah.
So, I mean, and right now the plants are all small, but you know, once they grow, they'll kind of fill it in. And
Yeah.
but yeah, you have to water them.
Yeah. I'm a plant lady. I have probably like 4 dozen of them behind me back here. I know Nikki's a plant lady too. So
Yeah. Well, you need one of these
Hardcore.
then in your
I know.
wall right there.
Well, where's your store?
It is on Forum. It's right next to Cece's.
Okay, that's so funny. I literally found your Instagram yesterday and sent
Oh,
it to
really?
several people, and we will be making a trip there. So don't worry about it.
yeah, and Jessica's going to be sharing a little bit about her store today too.
Yes.
So that's awesome. All right, Mike, it's 8:45 if you want to
Yeah.
kick us
Well,
off.
good morning, everybody. People are going to start rolling in here. Looks like we got 21, 22 people here.
We've got 59 registered, in case you're curious.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're just going to come flooding in, and it's going to be great. I'm not going to feel overwhelmed at all. 'Cause it's sunny out. If you're in Columbia, it's sunny for the first time in what feels like months.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful morning.
Yay.
Yeah. Yay for that. Excited everybody's here. Really excited for the talk today. We do have an icebreaker, so if anybody prepared with a little sign or something, otherwise just feel free to unmute yourself. The show I can't currently get enough of, and I want to open this up to like anything during quarantine that's, you know, gotten you through this, that you're just eating up. For me, it was Ozark. I finished it now, but as a mid-Missourian, I feel like once social situations are back up and running, if I don't know Ozark, then, you know, that's not a good look. You got to know about it. So I highly recommend that to anybody. I don't know if anybody else has something that they've just really enjoyed over the last few weeks.
I'm going to chime in and say my favorite quarantine show has been The Last Dance, because I was a teenager in the 90s. I saw Jordan play the Pacers. I was like 13 whenever he retired, so it was fun to rewatch like all the Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen, Steve Kerr, Jordan. It was pretty awesome. So
yeah, you're a kid in the 90s. Oh, that, even if you weren't a Bulls fan, that's just good. You remember all that stuff. I mean, even the graphics just from the sporting events, you're like, oh man, that takes me back.
Yeah. Kayla, I was gonna say Dead to Me too. I also really love that show. It's so funny and dark.
Yeah.
I watched that second season in like a day. So good.
Yeah, what else we got? So our icebreaker this morning is the show I can't currently get enough of. We can use the comments. If anyone wants to shout something out. Insecure, yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Community, The Last Dance, yes, The Last Dance. Oh, Sherlock, yeah, I've heard good things about that. I'm trying to read some of these. Ooh, Blacklist, classic. Very nice, very nice. Let's scroll over here, see if anybody else has got anything for us.
The Wire. Ooh, yeah. I've actually never watched The Wire, but I hear it's great. Oh, Vanderpump Rules. Louise. That's like a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, it's been, there's so much there. I think there's like, what, 6, 7 seasons? So it's always available.
Someone's watching The Great. Courtney, I see that. I like tried to watch that show. There's just a lot of sex. It's a lot for me, like for a historical drama. It got a little raunchy for me. It's funny, but
It's not as bad as Tudors, though. Tudors was a lot.
yeah, I haven't seen that. It's why I can't do Game of Thrones either.
Yeah, I couldn't do that.
Much for me personally, but anyone else?
Tales from the Loop, okay. Twilight Zone-y, ooh.
Ooh, I've not even
I'm
heard
here
of
for that.
Mike, I've got to second the Ozark. recommendation that really kept me going. I watched the full 3rd season.
Yeah, you got to prepare yourself for a show like that, but it's good. And like I said, as a Mid-Missourian, it's kind of like you just have to be prepared. Schitt's Creek, yes. Preach, great show. I was very skeptical of that show, I must admit. Kayla can attest, but it got me. It lured me in.
I mean, Catherine O'Hara, just at her best. Everybody at their best.
I know my mom's on the call, and I know she's a big Schitt's Creek fan too.
It's a wholesome, feel-good deal.
Louise's mom. It's nice
a little, yeah. Hey.
Hey.
So fun. The only thing I know about Louise's mom is that they do lots of bike riding together, which makes me very jealous because seeing my mom on a bike would be something. I don't know if I can imagine my mom on a bike.
Yeah, unfortunately not this year, but we're planning some trips hopefully for the future.
Y'all do those long, like 100-mile rides though, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's fun. That's our summer activity every summer.
Love that.
So I threw the icebreaker. We still got quite a few people coming in. I threw the icebreaker in the chat. The show I can't currently get enough of. We can branch this out if it's a podcast, movie, books, especially. Got some good stuff.
I'm really on Wine and Crime podcast. It's like my joy, and I don't even want to tell people about it because I love it so much, but it's awesome. It's so good. They do definitely cuss a lot, but it's great. They even go into psychology of why some of these people do what they do. So,
Nikki,
but
that's similar to
heavily, so.
Did you ever do My Favorite Murder? Did you ever listen to that one? Okay, is it?
I did. I didn't really like that one because I felt it's a little bit like that, but they don't really make as much fun of the people. It's more like comedy outside of the murder.
Yeah.
Because that was always my issue with that. But it's so great. It's really, really funny.
I'm into it.
I suggest it.
Nikki, could you say the name of it again?
Wine and Crime.
Okay. Thank
like
you.
you're drinking wine and talking about crime.
Isn't it funny? I feel like I've turned into my mother, watching Dateline every Friday night and really into true crime. My mom was always into that, and now all millennial women are very into it. We're just turning into our mothers slowly, one day at a time. Awesome. So I'm gonna, Mike, if you don't mind, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of kick us off so we can try to stay on course as much as possible. So for this month, our theme is nature. And so there were a couple of local folks that are just doing some really cool things that I thought really pertained to the theme. And I wanted to let them share. So the first, let me get my screen share up in here, but one of the people I wanted to share was Emma Doors. So Emma, if you want to wave to everyone. Emma launched a new business, and it's not necessarily pertaining to nature in the way that we would think about it. I thought about it more in terms of just human nature, how we really crave community and communication. And just that kind of personal touch, we all like getting emails, I guess, but it's more fun to get snail mail. I hate when there's more stuff in my inbox, but when I get a stack of cards in the mail, it feels a lot more special. So I wanted her to be able to talk a little bit about her business. So I'm going to share my screen. Emma, if you want to go ahead, I'm going to kick it off to you and let you share. Let me get the slides up here.
Awesome. So like Lindsay mentioned, this was an idea that my husband Clayton and I had. And we kind of had it a while back, but just being at home, seemed like a really good time to bring it to light. And so we realized how much we missed connecting with people. We have family all over, friends all over, or even just friends in our local community that we couldn't really connect with. So our favorite part of the day started becoming our trip to the mailbox, which sounds a little crazy, but really was a true highlight of the day. So we kind of put our heads together, and then thus the Postcard Club was born. So Lindsay, if you want to go to the next slide for me.
I know how to do that.
And no problem.
There we go.
Cool. So the Postcard Club is a quarterly postcard subscription. It's delivered directly to your mailbox, and it includes the stamps. That was a huge part of me never sending mail, was the card or the postcard would sit on my counter with no stamp. So including stamps was a must for us. We feature, different photographers, artists, or other creatives in the community, or, really could be anywhere where they're located. So if you are interested, let us know, and we'd love to feature your work. We have kind of our standard quarterly package, which right now is a set of photographs. And then we have the Young Creators Kit, which is really tailored towards the young creatives or the creative kids kind of at heart. So this is an example here of some illustrations that are on there. And then really just kind of, Lindsay, you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, hang on.
The purpose.
Sorry, I'm not doing this right, so just keep talking.
Okay, perfect. The purpose is just to encourage sending kind notes and really connecting with people outside of the inbox. You can check us out at thepostcardclub.com, or we're on social at just the Postcard Club, but just kind of a fun way to connect with people. Our motto is to skip the inbox and really just generate that feel-good moment when you open your mailbox and have a fun surprise from a friend.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'll link the Postcard Club in our little chat below, but hope you guys check it out. And we've had a lot of fun creating it, and it's definitely brought some joy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emma. I really do appreciate it. I'm excited about doing this. I need to sign up. I know several friends that have already signed up to do it, but it's definitely my issue too, is I have tons of cards and lots of things to do correspondence, but no stamps. And I hate going to the post office, particularly right now. So I think this is awesome. So very cool. So thanks so much for sharing. I think Clayton's on the call too. So good job, Emma and Clayton.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for letting us share.
Yeah, of course. So the next person that I wanted to be able to share is Jessica Foote. So Jessica owns May Win Home, which is a little shop here in town. So I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about what she does. I thought it was fun to include her, not only because she has a small business in town and we're in this really kind of challenging season, but also she features lots of plants and lots of wood in her store. And I thought it would be really cool to incorporate her into our nature theme as well. So Jessica, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about May Win.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jessica. So I'm the owner of May Win, which is a retail store. We just opened in February, so it was kind of some unfortunate timing. But we opened in February, and then we had to close in March for like a month, but now we're reopened. We are on Forum right next to CC's across the street from Schnucks, like I was telling people earlier. And here I am in the store. So I am obsessed with plants. So it's a home decor store. We have furniture, but we also have a ton of plants. I'm on the corner, so we have a ton of windows, and I just put up this plant wall behind me. So Lindsay asked me, take a couple minutes, share how you choose what's in the store, which is, it's kind of hard because I don't have like an exact like method, or people come in and they kept asking like, what do you call this style? Like, what is this? Which I don't know how to take that, but I would try to think of a term, or like I would say like, I don't know, it's like eclectic or like modern boho, or like, I don't know, it's just stuff I like, I don't know, it doesn't have a name. But then I noticed like people would come in here and they kept saying like, oh, I just feel so happy being in here, I just want to hang out here. And someone came in last week and said, what is this? Is this like a therapy place? And it was funny, but then I was like, that kind of is the point. Like, it's not like a style. It's like, this is how your house should be when you walk into it. Like, you should feel happy. Like, you want to hang out there, and it could be therapeutic. You're out all day in the world and you come home and you're in your house and it's like, therapy, and I'm happy and I have my plans and, all my happy. And most of the decor and stuff in here is handmade by, real artists, artisans, makers, whatever, all over the world. So that was kind of the inspiration. It's just a happy place where, you want to bring some of that into your house, basically.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica. And so are you guys open right now? What are your hours? Can people come check you out?
Yes. So I'll put the website down there in the Instagram. So basically we're open 11 to 5. We're closed on Monday. That's kind of my day to hang out with my kids. And then Sunday's 12 to 4. But then almost everything in the store's on the website too. And so I'm doing free shipping, or if you're in Columbia, we're doing like local delivery, which I usually can do it the same day. If you buy it off the website, you can just drop any. I have a lot of plants on the website too. So while we were closed, we were doing a ton of plant deliveries, and it seemed like people were loving it. So I just decided to keep doing that. I don't have a ton of plants on there right now, but there are more in here, but I'm working on it.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. I definitely, I think right around the time that you opened, I wanted to come and check it out, and then like the world ended and I was closed for a while. So I don't have any plans this weekend, so I might pop in and get to actually meet you in person. So thanks so much for sharing. I really do appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay.
Awesome. So our next presenter is actually a really dear friend of mine. I'm excited for her to share more about what she's been doing. This is some of her photography out in the world. So Allison Wapata is going to share more about nature and how it's really informed her writing, just something she's taken up over the last couple of months a little more seriously. So Allison, if you wouldn't mind telling us about what you've been doing and some more about these photographs.
Cool. Yeah. Hey, I'm Allison. So my practice is kind of just a more personal creative practice that I decided to set a goal for myself at the beginning of this year to spend at least 5 days a week walking one of Columbia's many trails, and then trying to sort of write something from that time outdoors. So I've been writing some poetry and prose, and sometimes it feels like the words flow really easily, and sometimes I have to work a little harder for them, but just that consistent practice of spending time outdoors has been just really good for my creativity. It has helped me to cultivate my attentiveness to the world around me. So I feel like right now everything's alive, and nature is really beautiful and green, and it's easy to sort of spot beauty. But when I started back in January, the landscape was pretty gloomy and barren, and I kind of had to work a little harder to see what was beautiful and to pay attention. So yeah, it's been a really good practice for me so far this year. It's definitely been good for me as I've tried to grow as a writer, just to to really have this consistent practice that I'm doing, and also just to be inspired by nature. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Allison. I really do appreciate you sharing about that. I have had the pleasure of taking many a nature walk with Allison over the years, so it's been kind of fun to see all of her work kind of come to fruition. So just really proud of you, friends. Thanks so much for sharing. All right, so the rest of the announcements we're going to run through before Oliver's talk are pretty standard, just talking about our sponsors. But during this time, while I'm running through the announcements and the slides, what we typically have in one of our in-person events is what we call our collaboration station. So if you are a local creative who's hiring, you're looking for work, you're looking to collaborate, or just local inspiration, maybe you want to work with Jessica, since you just heard her share, maybe you're interested in writing and you want to connect more with Allison. So what we're going to do is in the chat box, if you would put your name, your info, and kind of what you're looking for in terms of collaboration, and we'll gather all that info at the end of the event. Miranda will gather all of that, and then I will send it to you, so you don't feel like you have to grab it all now. I'll send a follow-up that has everyone's information, almost like an info board. Since we aren't able to do that in person, I figured this would be a good way to do that. So do that now. And if you would, when Oliver does start our talk, we'll just make sure to not be doing that while he's speaking. It can be really distracting to see those things kind of pop up over time. So feel free to do that now as we walk through the announcements. So this first slide we're going to walk through is just talking through the three big global sponsors that we have as an organization: WordPress, MailChimp, and Basecamp. So I'm going to walk through each of those sponsors and then what they're offering this month to all Creative Mornings attendees. The first is MailChimp. So MailChimp is offering all Creative Mornings attendees in May 3 months free of their standard plan. So if you're a business that wants to send out newsletters or do marketing automation, MailChimp has pretty much everything that you could possibly need now. This is how we send out all of our newsletters as an organization. So the offer expires May 31st. So if you are interested in this, please hop on it now. Again, at the end of this, I'll send out all the Collaboration Station resources, and I'll also send out all of the info about all these different offers that the sponsors are giving our attendees. So again, don't feel like you have to like screenshot or do everything right now. I'll get all this to you this evening, but we want to highlight these sponsors because really without them, we couldn't be doing what we're doing. They're helping keep our HQ team going, and that team has really been supportive, especially during this really strange time that we're all living in. The next sponsor I want to highlight is WordPress. So WordPress is offering a 30-minute webinar for anyone who's interested in learning more about how to build a website or how to bring their business online. I think most stores at least have some sort of online presence now, but WordPress is obviously supporting a lot of those local and global businesses. So we'd love to learn more from them if we can. They offer a couple different webinars throughout the year, but this one in particular looks like it's free to anyone who wants to check it out. And there are several topics and recordings and things you can check out on the website. So if you got time, check out wordpress.com/creativemornings and see more about what they're offering our folks. Our last global sponsor and newest global sponsor started just a couple of months ago is Basecamp. So obviously most of us have been resorted to remote work as of late. I think some of us maybe were used to that, but this is something that everyone is doing now. So having some place to organize all of your projects and all your to-dos in one place like a Basecamp is pretty killer, and it's clutch in a time like this. So what they're offering, let me see here, offering some tips through their internal communication guide. So learning about how they're internally communicating to their folks can really help other businesses learn how to have a fully remote workforce and how to best accomplish your goals during that time, while also making sure that people feel supported and that the communication is clear with your team. So I'm super thankful for all of these sponsors globally just allowing us to do what we do. So with that in mind, I just thought this would be fun to like raise your hand if you're thankful for something or you're grateful for something or someone. And if you're not raising your hand, I would maybe consider reevaluating your life. There's probably something in your life to be thankful for. I in particular am just really thankful to have a job during a really challenging season. I'm thankful for parents that are happy and healthy, and we've, thankfully not been affected by the coronavirus in a deeply personal way, which has me really grateful. But I'm also really grateful to all of our local sponsors. So we're going to walk through some of those now. I think some of you have been able to attend like our first and only in-person event in February. Unfortunately, it looks like globally we're not going to be hosting any in-person events until at least September. That's a global standard HQ has given us to all Creative Mornings chapters. So regardless of what our local and city government says, they like to play it safe. And so we're going to continue to meet online. And so we won't get to interact with a lot of these local sponsors, but I wanted to highlight them because they've really championed our event from the very beginning. So we'll eventually be partnering with them again to serve you Camacho coffee. And then Cosmic Sauce will be recording our events again. VERVOCITY is one of our sponsors that has been paying for our coffee. So Camacho comes and serves us, but VERVOCITY, Dean over there has been so gracious to foot the bill for that every month. So on top of that, Equipment Share, another local sponsor that has offered to pay for our breakfast for the year. So hopefully we'll get to meet together in the fall and serve you some bagels and donuts and coffee. I'm really excited to see everyone again. But for the foreseeable future, we'll be kind of meeting this way, but just wanted to highlight those local sponsors because not only are they part of our local community, but have really just like gotten behind us from the very beginning when they weren't even sure what this was or what Creative Mornings is. So really thankful for them. And the last kind of bit of announcements I wanted to go through is like, if you are looking for some work, but particularly if you're a freelance designer, or if you're looking for anything in the creative space or creative field, creativemornings.com/jobs has some opportunities there. So feel free to check that out. Particularly right now, I know that some companies are actually thriving and hiring a ton. So feel free to check that out if you are looking for work, or if you need some other resources in terms of what Creative Mornings offers. Feel free to email us, and I'm happy to kind of set you up with the right folks. And then lastly, talking through virtual field trips. I actually saw that some of you, I can kind of see on the back end, like what events everyone has attended. And I've seen quite a few of you have attended some of the field trips. Jessica Foote in particular, who shared earlier, she's gone to a lot of these. So, at some point I'd love to hear your experience, Jessica, and like how you felt about that. But it's just a really cool opportunity to get inside someone else's creative space and see what they're doing. Typically these field trips would exist in person, and we would go check out a local creative space or something in Columbia. But since we're not able to do that, doing them virtually allows you to go into someone's home in Paris or in Chicago, and just places that you wouldn't normally be able to go. So I think this is a really cool opportunity. If you're interested in the field trips, you can check out the link below. Or if you're interested in hosting a field trip in your space, you can sign up to do that there as well. So let us know as a community if you do that. I'd love to come check it out and really amp up your event so people can come see it. And then just as a reminder, we're not alone in this wild, wild west that we all seem to be existing in. I feel like we're in an alternate universe every day, but it is helpful to remember that we're not alone. There are 215 chapters across the globe that are meeting in 67 countries. And so that's 20,000 people that are meeting, and over 8,000 talks, and 9 million people viewing those from all over the place. So it's just something to keep in mind perspective-wise, that we really all are in this together, as cliche as that sounds. But just seeing the numbers like kind of warms my soul and makes me feel better about being in this 800 square foot apartment with just my cats. So it makes me feel less alone. So anyhow, I wanted to share that with you, so maybe it helps you feel less alone too. Before we kick off Oliver's talk, I did want to remind everyone about our Creative Mornings manifesto. Jeremy, are you on the line? If so, I'm going to have you read our manifesto before we move on to the next thing. And if you weren't able to log on, I'll have someone else read.
Yeah, I'm on here. It's good to see everyone. Yep, awesome. Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah.
All right, this is our manifesto. Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty and hard work. We are here to support you, celebrate with you, encourage you to make things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections, in learning from others, in hugs and high fives most of the time. We bring people together who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in the neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeremy. So before we move on to our nature talk by Oliver Clark, I wanted to let you guys know, as Oliver is speaking, if you have questions that come to mind or things that you'd like to know about his creative endeavors or the talk overall, you can send those questions in the chat. I ask that you send those to Louise Sarver. So if Louise can give a wave, I'm not sure if you can see her, but you should be able to find her and DM her in the chat to Louise if you have any questions, so she can gather those. And at the end of the talk, I'll let Louise walk through those questions with Oliver. Again, just like popping those questions in can be really distracting when you're speaking, so just DM those to her. But otherwise, I'm going to hand it off to Oliver Clark to talk about our nature theme. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Oliver, it will be up to you to share your slide deck whenever you are ready. But everyone give a nice little welcome to Oliver Clark.
Hi, everybody. Let me screen share. Great. Is that visible to everybody? Okay, great. So I'm Oliver Clark. I am a sculptor that bends wood and interlocks it with hand-cut joinery. And I braid strings and lace them through the curves to create tension and potential energy. I create art series symbolic of classical allegories to tie emotions and morals to my sculptures. Creative Mornings asked me to speak on the topic of nature. To do this, I'll address two different definitions of nature. Nature can mean the material world existing independently of human activities. This is the mountains, trees, animals, rivers, etc. that you experience on a hike or camping. Nature can also mean your inherent character, personality, and genetic predisposition. This is your instincts or innate interests that are intrinsic to you. Starting in high school, I primarily drew close-up cropped representational images on wood with a pyrography pen. My success with wood burning led me to pursuing an art career at the college level. At the Kansas City Art Institute, I was given the task by my foundation's professor, Steve Whitaker, to make not only an abstract art piece, but also my first sculpture. I immediately gravitated to using twigs and strings to make the sculpture. I love the pliability of the small branches to make the curves. I used strings and knots to put the twigs in tension, helping my precarious sculpture tower to climb. You can also see how good I was at setting up a backdrop there in freshman year of college. There we go. Later at KCAI, I used a tree to make an ad hoc spiral installation out of lumber. I shattered and unified it by painting it white. I shattered the lumber. My favorite success of the sculpture was that it interacted with bees. I covered the wood planks with honey and bird seed to see what animals would be attracted to it. It soon became a gathering for an entire hive. The buzzing from the swarm of bees was so loud it could be heard from across the parking lot. During my junior year at KCAI, I made this sculpture named The Futility of Drudgery, out of my resentment for the lack of fulfillment from accomplishment. This is a notion I was working with that was later validated when I started to study Zen and learned their history of dealing with emotions of sadness and frustrated work. Zen philosophy has a place for you to be melancholy because of the realization that everything is imperfect and impermanent, that is to say, dying. This notion is true to human experience to the extent that I was able to come to it separate from learning about it in Zen doctrine. This is a predecessor to my Icarus series, where I was working with the same ideas, but they had yet to fully germinate. The cantilever form is rich to represent emotions of Icarus striving to conquer the natural world with its upward reach, but then with its eventual peak from his hubris to stalling, where the sculpture starts to collapse under its own weight. Also, I don't know if Harrison's still in the chat. He was earlier. He helped me build like most of this sculpture. So I just kind of grabbed him off a different college campus and forced him to work. It was great. During college, I also started learning functional woodworking under the master cabinet maker, Dave Polifka. This is when I started to experience different natures of wood. Wood responds irregularly, partially because of the 4 ways trees are milled for ease of cutting and to acquire different grain patterns. They are plain sawn, quarter sawn, roof sawn, and live sawn. I find wood to be a curious material to work with because it was once a living organism and still expands and contracts with the changing seasons, retaining some of the vitality and soul from when it was a living tree. The growth rings of the trees have different levels of stability, causing boards to warp based on how the grain is arranged in the milled lumber and if the drying process is done correctly. While working as a woodshop technician at KCAI and interning with Dave Polifka at his cabinet shop, I also learned of the many ways that lumber can become defective for furniture and other functional woodworking. My sculpture language started to develop conceptually by the allegories I was studying for my art history degree and aesthetically by my instinctual attraction to the imperfect and irregular movement of using living wood. Rather than shying away from natural defects in the lumber, I embrace them, like the cracks in the cherry here and the big knot. I started to turn them into focal points instead of something to be discarded or hidden. It seemed to not use the disfigured wood lacked an authenticity to the material that I should use plastic or steel if I wanted a clear and stable material to sculpt from. I found the flaws to make the sculptures more engaging by giving them unique moments of checks and knots that would not exist if I created the work with a synthetic material. After graduating from KCAI and getting married the next day, I created and exhibited my Icarus series. This piece I created shows Icarus's striving flight with the upward motion of the arcs held in tension, and I symbolize the stall and crash of Icarus with the collapsing splayed slabs of live edge wood. Another interest to me with this piece was the aesthetic challenge to use 5 slabs from the same walnut tree for the panels and a severely broken cherry board for the bottom left member. The cherry board was so heavily cracked that I had to put 14 maple inlays in it to stabilize it enough to use. My captivation with irregular and rough wood led to me settings and aesthetics. I did not set out to make Zen wabi-sabi style art, but as I learned and read about Zen and wabi-sabi aesthetics in my art history classes, I saw how what I was discovering in my creation process had been described in the aesthetic principles of wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi is an aspect of Zen. Wabi-sabi is a way to live life, but it also relates to a type of aesthetic beauty. The wabi-sabi aesthetic language was created by the Japanese from observing nature. They gleaned that all things are impermanent, imperfect, and incomplete. Most of what I'll talk about with Zen and wabi-sabi comes from the books Wabi-sabi by Leonard Cohen, Enso Zen Circles of Enlightenment by Audrey Yoshiko-Seo, and Zen Art Book by Stephen Addis and John Lurie. Also, Zen doctrine is described as being understood only from a mind-to-mind connection and not through written or spoken word. So take that in mind with everything I say, because I've completely learned about it through books and lectures. Starting with wabi-sabi aesthetic principles is fukinsei. As you can see asymmetry is shown in the Enso circle by the aberrant ink trail. The contrasting loops and unique pieces of walnut are fukinsei within my Odysseus 5 sculpture pictured. Next, showing is kanso, is the clean raking of the sand around the smooth stone. And within my work is the polished surface of the walnut with the 3 inlay focal points. The rough texture of the pottery bowl and the live edge wood of Odysseus 6 are cocoa. The plant's leaves and the Icarus sculpture's bows are yugen by their elegant curves. Shizen is shown in the picture of the garden by having it be a little overgrown with moss and shrubs and not swept clear of leaves. My use of a fungi-rotted spalted cottonwood board evokes Shizen. That's that middle member there where the colors are kind of shifting and it's cracked, so it has the inlay in it. The branch shows Datsu Zoku by the inconsistent growth and movement. Datsu Zoku is shown by the sporadic spirals in my Iliad sculpture. Datsu Zoku was created because I guided the curves into their shape by sensing how much the wood wanted to bend and move instead of mastering them into prefabricated jigs. Seijaku is created within the garden in the Icarus sculpture by their visual peace and balanced harmony of their components. Wabi-sabi aesthetics also have a precedence for retaining and highlighting accents instead of discarding or hiding them by the kintsugi method of repairing broken vessels with lacquer, dusted gold, or other precious metals. In my own work, I have used crushed lapis lazuli to fill gaps around bow tie inlay, and I used wooden wedges to snug otherwise loose joinery. Restarting after a joinery mistake would not be authentic and would present a superficial quality to my work. By transforming the flaws with inlay, they become visual strengths instead of detractions. And then lastly, I love the aesthetic language of Zen because of their mantra that everything there's a season. That is a great freedom, and there's a great freedom in that mantra for having rules to be guided by, but then being able to use them or discard them depending on the current project I'm working on. An example of this is how I love the rich earth tones of wood with only a clear varnish, but I also want the freedom to be able to experiment with colored stains and dyes. All right, now I'm going to transition from the natural world to where my inherent nature comes from. My great-grandfather, James Clark, immigrated from Scotland to the United States during the Great Depression and was an architect designer. He primarily designed intricate wood carvings for neo-Gothic churches being renovated on the East Coast. That's also a photo I have from he wrote an autobiography, and so that's the photo I have from it. When my grandparents saw my interest in woodworking and sculpting, they revealed and passed on to me close to 50 of my great-grandfather's original blueprints. It was incredible to be given such a family treasure and to learn there was a family history to be a part of. I was no longer creating out of isolation, but now I knew of the precedents for creating within my ancestry. I was not attempting to start a new family tree, but a shoot off an old family branch. It was such a privilege to be able to pore over his blueprints and to get to take in his intense ornamentation balanced designs. An exploration to learn more about my heritage and to see how it relates to why I am attracted to specific things, I started to plan a trip to visit all of the many churches he had on the East Coast. I decided to start with James Clark's most noteworthy design, the wood carving for the organ screen of St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. Here on the left are James Clark's designs I have for the organ woodworking in the cathedral, and on the right is a photo of the organ screen in St. Patrick's. It's kind of right over the door whenever you first walk in. It's like in the center of the apse, so it's to your back as soon as you walk in the cathedral. Here's another photograph from a different angle of the organ screen he designed at St. Patrick's. It was very exciting to get to see the magnificent work and how much of it was made of abstract patterns. This inspired me at a deep level that later led to me learning to carve. Next in my quest to learn about my heritage, I decided to see how James Clark was inspired by researching the architectural sites that Sir Robert Lorimer, James Clark's mentor, designed in Scotland. In July 2018, with the help of winning an Arts KC grant, I was able to journey to Scotland to view many of Lorimer's chapels and monuments. This sojourn allowed me to gain beyond a superficial appreciation for my Scottish heritage by experiencing these historic sites firsthand. Among the many churches and architecture I studied on this pilgrimage, my favorite of Lorimer's was his Thistle Chapel. This amazing chapel's dense carvings are magnified by only being open to the public a few hours a day, specifically whenever the light shines through the windows to create the perfect heaven effect. The complexity of James Clark's work led to me wanting to become more skilled than only being able to make gentle arcs out of wood. While I was in the UK looking at Lorimer's architecture, I took an advanced steam bending class from Charlie Winnie. He's the guy on the left there with the big leather glove on. Before Charlie's class, this Icarus sculpture was the extent of my wood bending ability. I relied on thin wood and tension to be able to bend it. After the steam bending class, I was able to loop the wood back in on itself and even twist the wood. With more self-guided practice of steam bending wood, I was able to create my Iliad sculpture. This piece was the maturing of my sculpture language and got me closer to the density of my great-grandfather's ornamentation. Lastly, my heritage is reflected in my nature by creating art as a form of worship. In the same manner that my great-grandfather designed meticulous work for churches, I create sculptures. This is because when I create, I'm emulating my Heavenly Father, the first creator. The act of creating, bringing something out of nothing, is not a fringe thing in being Christ-like, but the way God chose to introduce himself in his word. Without creation, there's only stagnation and decay. Thank you for signing on to this Creative Mornings Talk about nature. I would love to answer any questions you have for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Oliver. Your work is so beautiful, and I appreciate you taking the time to walk us through this and talk about your family and your inspiration. It's been really wonderful just to see all of that and hear from you. So we had a few questions that came in through the chat. Anyone else can feel free to send me these as we go through this Q&A. But I know our first question came from Lindsay, and she's really curious about how you carefully bend the wood. So I know you talked about steam bending, but I'd love to know more about how long that takes you, the tools that you use, and kind of what that process looks like, because it creates such a beautiful, delicate effect.
Sure. You guys can see through the webcam, right? Or is it just on the screen share? Okay, great. So different wood bends better than other wood. So like white oak bends very, very well, whereas pine or one of those kind of woods is much more finicky. But I like to use a variety of wood so that I can get different colors in it. So that's just that basic. So I take wood and I put it into a box, and then I have steamers hooked up to it, very similar to those of like steaming a curtain, something like that. And then you want to try to get it as close to boiling as you can. I think my box right now gets to about 190 degrees.
Wow.
And then the rule is supposed to be 1 inch per hour, but that's never worked for me. I don't know if that's because I'm not getting it quite hot enough or what. So like 1 inch of volume in the wood. So if it was, 1 inch thick by 1 inch thick, then that would be 1 hour of steaming. So I usually just have it going for like 6 hours, and then I try to start messing with the wood. See if I can spin this around in my shop here. Let's see. That is my box, the steam box right there. So
very cool. Well, that was my next question, was where do you work? What does your studio space look like? And how do you find, the space and time to work on such large sculptures?
Well, this is definitely my studio space. I can kind of spin around. Well, how I find time is this is what I do every day. So it's, my job. Space is a very hard struggle in working out of a 2-car garage. With that big Iliad piece, I mostly worked on the driveway of the garage. And then that went to Colorado, so I had to make it so it could come apart and then be assembled like 10 feet up in the air. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Okay, we had another question from Janya come in, who asked about the titles of the books that you mentioned earlier, and if you could please repeat those and maybe share them after the presentation. And I would definitely love to learn more about how you came across those and what really kind of connected you to those books in particular.
So a lot of those books came from, let's see if I can flip back to them. I took an art history seminar class on Zen, like philosophy and that. So those are just part of the curriculum for that class. And then the most recent one, the one by Leonard Cohen, I just bought it off Amazon. What's interesting is if you study Zen stuff on the internet, at least from my experience, it's very recycled. It seems like almost everyone got all their info from one firsthand source, and then they've just been copying other articles because it's all been, I guess, westernized. And so there's not really new info about it unless you go to books. So that's really bizarre to find out that you start seeing that they're just like paraphrasing what someone else said.
That's really interesting to think about. Yeah. What do you find is the hardest part of the creative process for you?
I guess communicating with people, you make the work sellable. So I think the actual making of it and all that is really wonderful, and it just kind of keeps getting better. And you start out with something really simple, and then the next piece you add on one more complexity, and to where each piece gets a little bit denser. But then, you know, it's like this giant piece. Are you guys seeing that on your screens? That would be really hard to sell to someone. So it's not very practical. And this piece, you know, there was like thousands of bees on it. So a lot of people probably wouldn't like that in their neighbor's yard. So trying to figure out things that are still really cool to me, but also practical. Like this one, whenever I sold it, I had to completely condense it into itself. So I like had to make it much smaller. So that is not really that creative. And I don't know, it's totally a form of creativity, making stuff, like communicating emotion enough that someone else wants to possess it. But it's not something I have a lot of skill with. So that's what's challenging for me.
Yeah, I definitely think that's something that a lot of artists struggle with, is communicating that emotion and making that connection with someone else who is interested in their work. So that's definitely, I know, something that a lot of people are thinking about. Mike had a question. He wants to know, did you know the breadth of your great-grandfather's work prior to receiving those blueprints? And how did you learn about his past work and mentors?
I knew a little bit about my great-grandfather because, like, if I walk into my grandparents' house, there's like wood carvings around the house. And so I had a familiarity with the legitimate carvings. But until they like showed me the blueprints, I had no idea. They like walked me up their stairs, opened a random closet, pulled out a box, pulled out bags, and then there's just this massive portfolio of these blueprints. And they're like, they're just sitting here, you should take them. I was like, all right, this is awesome. So I really didn't. And then the whole thing with St. Patrick's, like, that always just kind of sounded like not true. It's like, I doubt that he actually has work in the, you know, biggest cathedral in New York City. That seems impossible. And then it's like, I went there and I have the blueprint and I'm looking at it. It's like, no, that's it. Like, there's the angel with a kilt on playing bagpipes. So I don't know. It was pretty incredible. How I learned about his mentor, I don't know. It must just be like my grandfather must have just told me that. I don't know how else I would have found out about it. So. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Did you conduct like a lot of your research online or reading through old books, or how did you kind of go through that research process?
Are you talking about finding out his churches?
Yeah, like finding out more about his life and his history.
Well, with my great-grandfather, James Clark, it's actually all those blueprints have the place written on them. It says like what city it's in, what church it is, what it's for, you know, if it's a pew or an altar piece. For the Lormier stuff, that was a lot of just online research about different things. And then, you know, I had to put that together in some organization to write a grant to get funding to go do it. So.
Amazing. That's really cool. All right, well, I'd love to open it up to anyone else who has any other questions that they want to ask Oliver directly. So please feel free to chime in if anyone has any questions that they want to talk to him about.
I just have one. Are you always working on just one project at a time, or do you have multiple projects happening?
I typically try to work on multiple projects. If you can see behind me, there's 4 pieces on my wall right now. And yeah, so I do try to work on a few at a time usually.
Awesome, thank you.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any last questions that they want to get in there?
I have a question. I'm kind of curious. I mean, you and Miranda are friends of mine, but I'm also kind of curious how you work together and like what that looks like and how your work informs the others, because you both work with wood. So I'm just kind of curious what that partnership looks like. And you can both speak to that if Miranda wants to say something too.
Yeah, I've been talking to Miranda. What do you think?
Well, we don't collaborate, but at all. But I think that we inspire each other in very like kind of like a tangent or an offshoot of the ideas that we're thinking about. So like up until a couple of years ago or last year, a lot of my work was CNC routed. So I felt like this immense satisfaction in creating these large CNC sculptures where I was like programming the router and making the file very digitized, like removed process where I would just have this final wooden structure that I would then sand and paint and make look perfect, which is not what Oliver does. He like takes this wood and kind of makes the best out of it, where I'm like if it doesn't look a certain way, it's just going to get covered. It look wonderful. But seeing the way that he works and the freedom that he has with hand tools has definitely inspired me to learn how to timber frame and to become more exact with the joinery that I use and not some like ad hoc way that is only available on like a 2-dimensional plane. So if I'm cutting something myself with a hand tool, I have like full 360 rotation and control of it. Where also Oliver is like, you're seeing his influence or my influence on him and how he's choosing color. And it's not only because the paint we have available in our house or is the paint he uses, but it's part of like he sees the fun that I have just like adding random strips of color to my work, and he's starting to use the lapis lazuli around his joinery. So it's definitely like we're constantly in communication, but like interpreting it in the way that we see the world, and we live together, and of course we talk about it, and we've studied the same things, and we have like the same love of Gothic and Baroque architecture, and like there's always this like constantly building concepts. We had a conversation with the sculpture department at KCAI where like things don't just happen overnight, but over time. So I think we're constantly building that conversation together.
Very cool.
Wonderful. Yeah.
I love that. Is there anything else, Oliver, that you wanted to communicate before I kind of wrap us up? I wanted to share about our next month's event, but before we do that, I wanted to give you the opportunity to close out with anything else you feel like you want to share with the group.
No, that's all. I appreciate everyone coming here and listening to me talk about my stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think we'll put the information, Miranda, when we send out the collaboration station stuff. I'd love to include all of Oliver's info too. So I know there was a mention of like studio visits. I'm not sure what that looks like right now for you, but wanted to put that in there if anybody wanted to cruise by and see some of the work. I still haven't been able to do that, and I've been wanting to do that for months. So maybe we can do that soon, but really do appreciate your time, Oliver. The work is so cool and beautiful and inspirational. So I hope everyone else found this as interesting as I did. So thanks everyone for coming. Before we go, I wanted to do one last quick screen share to share about our next month's event that will be on, can everyone see that? You guys good? Can you see Nikki on your screen? Okay, so June speaker, June 19th, is Nikki Magruder, who's the director of the Inclusive Impact Institute. She came to Influence & Co., where I worked several months, maybe years ago now, and worked with our team, and I was just really impressed with her in general. I'm really excited to hear about her diversity and inclusion efforts in the state of Missouri and beyond. So I think Nikki's actually on the call. for some reason it looks like my screen share. Oh, there we go. You guys can see her. I think she's on the call today, so I'm glad that she was able to join us. I'm really looking forward to hearing what she has to say next month. Again, it's June 19th. The theme is insecure. So Nikki will be joining us. We'll get all the information out on social soon, so you know when to sign up and where to get your tickets. But loved having everyone here today. Is there any questions anyone has before we kind of wrap up and you can go about your work day? Thank God it's Friday. Really excited about that. Any other questions, concerns, or things you'd like to say before we wrap up? Anyone? No? Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again so much, everyone, for being here. I also just wanted to point out one last thing. Our Creative Mornings HQ team, I think I said this earlier, has made the decision to not have any in-person events, at least until September, and even then we'll reevaluate. So we'll continue to do these virtual events. As the city ordinances allow, feel free to get together and collaborate if you feel comfortable, you know, as things continue to loosen up in our town here in Columbia. But we won't be able to do any in-person sponsored Creative Mornings events, but you know, it's up to your discretion how you'd like to get together outside of that. But we'll do this again next month. And then if you have any questions, feel free to shoot us a message on social or email us. But otherwise, thanks everyone, and we'll see you next month.